Hi, everybody. It's Ellen Violette here, and I want to welcome you back to day 2 of the the 5-day bestseller breakthrough challenge. I hope you enjoyed yesterday. If you didn't watch the training or do the assignment yesterday, I highly suggest doing that before you go on. Of course, you can watch now because you're here, but we are going to build each day on the day before. Okay, so today we are going to talk about finding your ideal book buyers and clients because having a book really should, for a business, should be. And I'm not saying you can't sell books, but the main thing, you're going to make a lot more money if you're using it as a lead magnet to get people into your community, into your programs. And so you got to know who they are. Because boy, there's nothing worse than trying to market your book when you don't know who you're speaking to, and then sitting there going, wow, I spent all this time writing a book and nothing's happening. And that's because you're not connecting with the audience because you don't know who the audience is. So that's where we need to start. So I just want you to know, if you don't know who your audience is, that's not unusual. When I started, I had no clue who my audience was. None. So I remember having Lori Morgan on I interviewed her for one of my early summits, and she was talking about who her ideal market was. And she had it dialed in so tight. I mean, she had a name for them and, how many kids they had and who they were married to and where they lived. And it just went on and on and on. I was just like freaking out, like, oh my God, I have no clue what this is, or how to do this. So, yeah, it can be really overwhelming when you're getting started, if you're getting started. And the good news is that over time, it got clearer and clearer. And the way that I approached it, because it was the only way that I could figure out how to approach it, was to just work with people. I worked with whoever wanted to work with me. I needed the money. I needed the experience. I needed the experience more than I needed the money at that point. But I just did it. And then I saw who I liked working with and I saw who I didn't like working with. And that's important. So if you already have clients and you think about, who you like working with, that's great if you have that. Do you like working better with men? Do you like working better with women? Are they a certain age? Are they in a certain niche? All these things can help you to get clear on who your best target market is. And I will say that once you start doing that, you will also see who are the energy drainers. And these are people who eat up your time. They don't appreciate you. They're difficult. And they'll maybe ask for special pricing. They want discounts. They want freebies. They never value your value. And these are not people that we want to work with. Okay. Hi, Barbara. So, it's just as important to know who you don't want to work with as who you do want to work with. And again, you learn that over time. And I will say that if you don't learn that lesson, you will begin to really not like your business. And I have been in that situation in the past because I was too nice and I wanted to help everybody. And I just found that there are certain people that they feel entitled, and no matter how much you give them, it's never enough. So you really have to be careful of those people. I also had one woman who I fired, and then she came back and swore to me that she had changed. I mean, she was like emailing me 10 times a day. And if I didn't respond right away, she would accuse me of spending more time with my other clients. And the truth is, I was spending more time with her than anybody. And she was saying that I spent more time with them because they paid me more. And that was simply not the truth. So I let her back in and she did the same thing again. So the lesson learned is, no, you only get one shot at that. And I will say, years later, she came back and it turned out she had an alcohol problem and she apologized and all that. But that was it. I didn't work with her again. So I've learned to say no faster, and it's still an ongoing process. But anyway, So I really see that as being part of your non-negotiables. When you start thinking about who you want to work with, who you don't want to work with, what is non-negotiable for you? What type of people are non-negotiable for you? Maybe, as I said, the things I already said, but maybe they're just boring topics that you don't want to deal with. It's just not interesting to you, or maybe you just don't like them personally. You don't have to say yes to everybody. So these are important things to know. And it's a lot easier when you work with people that you have an affinity for. An affinity is like you have a camaraderie with, you understand them. They resonate with you. Maybe they have the same values. Maybe they are in the same field, whatever that is for you, similar interests. And not working with people that you don't relate to. Like for me, I have never been in corporate America. I never related to that. I never wanted to do that. The irony is I may do it in the future because the truth is that companies have a lot of money. But if I can go and be myself, fine. If I have to squeeze myself into a corporate structure, then no, that's not going to happen. And I will say, one of the things that was really liberating, again, to go back to the One Thing by Gary Keller, is he said how, when he bought into what you have to be, who you have to be successful. And so he thought, he had to wear a suit and tie and he had to show up early and he had to do all these things to fit into the mold. And he was miserable. And what he said was that finally he said, screw it, I'm not doing this anymore. And he just went back to being himself. And he talked about how he became much more successful when he went back to doing it himself. Yeah, non-negotiables. Good. Yeah, I want people to think about that. Non-negotiables are important. So, yeah, I think being yourself is important. I have one friend, colleague, who really hates getting dressed. And so she decided that in order to be able to live the way she wanted to live, she needed to actually bake it into her brand. And so I think her brand is the casual entrepreneur. So she's always casual because that's her thing. I have also been on calls where coaches have said, it's how you show up is going to get you more money or less money. And so you have to do that. So again, you have to decide what's going to work for you and what you're willing to do and not willing to do. So, as far as not having affinity for people, I remember I once did a webinar with these two women and they were from corporate America. And I can't remember exactly what we were talking about, but entrepreneurship. And I gave my spiel and they gave theirs. And when the whole thing was over, I remember thinking, I don't understand half of what they said, but I know they were talking about kind of the same thing I was talking about. And when it was over, they said to me, oh my God, the way you presented, it's just so easy. It's so simple. And I said, well, why do you guys make it so hard? It's like they had this corporate talk that was just really hard to understand. Even, they liked the way I did it better. So, but again, you have to talk to people the way they understand you. And so if you don't speak their language, it's going to be very hard for you to work with them because you have to be able to communicate and they have to understand what you're saying. So that's important. For me, I like working with creative, mission-driven leaders, speakers, coaches, consultants, authors, entrepreneurs. And so that's who I gravitate towards now. But it's also, well, there's some other stuff I want to go to about that. But first, I want to talk about how do you find them, right? So I said, well, who do you associate with? So like, what groups are you in? And, when you're in groups like on Facebook and LinkedIn, be intentional about who you are, which groups you're spending your time in, right? Because you can be in a lot of groups and you can be in groups where people don't have any money to spend. You can be in groups where people, and one of those is like, coupon cutters, people who are trying, whoops, I just lost my earpiece. People who are trying to save money. Those are not people we want to work with because you can't grow your business. You can't scale your business. And it's a lot harder to get 40 or 50 people at a $10, thing than 10 people at a $5,000 offer or even a $3,000 offer. 10 people is 30 grand. So that's why, you want to spend the time that you're going to spend in social media or wherever you're going with the right people. And so that's why it's so important for us to figure out who those right people are. And so, you're looking for, as I said, people who belong to groups that you do, people you have an affinity for. And it can also be people where you you've done something, and so you are kind of your ideal client, and then you look for other people who are like you. So that's another possibility. But sometimes it's not you. Sometimes it's maybe somebody in your family. Like if you're a caregiver and you're looking for other caregivers, or you have an autistic child and you're looking for other people, parents with autistic children. So, or addiction, people who have an addiction, or if you had an addiction, or people who have a child with an addiction, or, there's so many people who have had a child who committed suicide. I mean, there are just so many groups of people depending on what your topic is. So the next thing is, who can afford your services? This is really important. And this can change as you grow your business. So again, when I first started and I first did my boot camp, it was just a few $100s. I only had a couple of people in the very first one, and it was kind of a mess. I remember after I gave it, one of the women said, "Oh, well, this was great, except now I'm going to go take this other course on how to write a book." And I go, "What do you mean? I just gave you a whole week on how to write a book." It was like, well, but I didn't really get a process for the writing part. It was like everything else. It's like we talked about how to write your titles and how to write your subtitles and how to find your audience and all that. And then how to publish it and edit and format and all the other things. But I didn't have a real concrete system at that point for writing the book. So, so that, and so I knew, I couldn't start at a very high price. I had to start low. And then I can remember, as I improved, I remember my web person saying to me, "You got to raise your prices. You've got to raise your prices." And I was like terrified to raise my prices in those days. But little by little I did. And eventually it got to where it is. And also people kept telling me, "Well, what about this or what about that?" And so I just kept improving it and adding to it. And so that's what you'll do. And then even then, you'll reach a point where it's like, okay, I've gone as far as I can go with this, but what else can I offer, or what could I offer at a higher price? For instance, as I've said, I'm in a high ticket coaching program, and my coach is creating a program that's $140,000. And so I said in one of our calls, I said, "Well, I can't even wrap my head around that. What's the difference? What are you doing there?" And he said, "Well, the information is pretty much the same. What's different is the experience." So they're taking them, like they're going to pick them up, they're going to fly them out, they're going to pick them up in a limousine, they're going to give them champagne. It's the experience of it. So, and how high you can go really is just your imagination. I was on a call the other night in Clubhouse, and I hadn't heard Mark Victor Hansen talk on this particular call, but he had just talked before that, and people were saying what their takeaways were. And one of the big takeaways that people were saying was that he had said that there was a woman and she had to make $1 million in a month, and she did it. And so he said, if you want to make $1 million in a month, ask yourself, he said 400 times a day, how can I make $1 million in a month? And then people were debating that and saying, well, it's not really that you have to say it 400 times. That's a lot of times, but have that your intention and say it as much as you need to say it until you get an answer for it. But again, the idea is that at every level, you have to change, or possibly have to change, who your ideal clients are, who can afford to pay you. So this is really, really important. So, and again, as I was going to say, the truth is that you're not going to get the same people at the $3,000 level or the $5,000 level as you get at the 10 or 20 or 50 or more. So, how you approach that is going to change regardless of what stage you're at in your business. It's also dependent on the psychology of that group of people. For instance, golfers and tennis players are just known to have a different mentality about their sport. So golfers, just want to get better, and they will buy a lot of stuff about their sport. They also tend to be high earners, who belong to country clubs and all that. Tennis players, you get a racket, you get a ball, and you can go to public courts and you're good to go. So if you were a tennis player and you were a golfer, you'd want to go for golfing over tennis. So does that make sense? Yes, work with people that you have an affinity for. Absolutely. Urgency can play a part too in who your ideal clients are. So who needs what you offer like right now? Like you don't want to look for somebody who needs it in 6 months or a year or later. You want to look for people who need it now. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't people who are going to need it later. I mean, writing books. I have people on my list that have been there for a very long time and have never written a book. It's like it's on their someday list. And some of them may never get around to it, but I don't focus on those people. I mean, they're there in the background, but that's not who I focus on in my marketing or in my writing because you don't know. Okay. Also, as I said, you don't want people with a scarcity. Well, I don't know if I said that exactly, but I guess it's the same thing, a scarcity mentality. So, I said no clipping coupons, but also just a scarcity mentality. You want people who are willing to pay for what they want. And, there's some people, maybe you're one of them, I don't know, raise your hand if like you always want the best. I mean, this is so funny because it's so amazing how there's always synchronicity. But our toothbrush died yesterday. And so we were trying to figure out what we should buy. And the last time we got it, I think we got it at Costco and it was like $100. So I go and I look again, and it's hard right now because, with COVID, we can't really see what it is we're buying as well as you could when you're in the store. And so then we were looking up different things to try to figure out which one to get. And then I was looking up, best. I've been doing this a lot lately because I found out that, I got an itch up my nose. I found out that it really works, is they have these lists, of what's the most important or what are the best product, whatever the product is. So I looked it up for toothbrushes. And then Kristen said, well, maybe you should ask your dentist, which one does your dentist recommend? And then I went, I'm going to go into Amazon, into Google and put that in and see what comes up. So it said, dentists recommend this one. So my mindset was, we're going to buy the, probably be around $100. And all of a sudden we see the one that all the dentists recommend, and it's $300. So why is it $300? It's $300 because it removes 10 times the plaque. And with COVID, we haven't been to a dentist, which I'm not happy about. So now all of a sudden I'm going, oh crap, I know, I got to get this one. This is the one that I need. And so, but if I had the mentality that, well, I'm only going to spend $100 because that's what I spent last time and that's as much as I can afford and all that, then that's what I would have bought. But I'm thinking long term of, well, what is this going to save me if I can save my teeth, not get, because not getting to the dentist, get a lot of that plaque off. It's worth it to me to spend $200 more because I understand the value of what I'm getting. And so that's what I want you to think about for yourselves, and then also for your potential clients and your potential book buyers. So does that make sense? Like, think about quality, think about investment, think about what you're getting. Okay. Okay, good. Catherine says what I'm saying makes sense. Yeah. It makes a huge difference. I mean, I remember as an aside, I spent a lot of money in the first few years of my business and got very heavily into debt from it. And then I went through a period where it's like, I'm not spending any more money. And when I did that, all I did was cut my nose to spite my face because it was just a really big struggle. And so eventually I realized that was not okay. It was not going to get me where I wanted to go. And I finally got back into a mindset where I was willing to spend the money again. But the difference was that I had matured in my entrepreneurial journey, and I now was very clear about the kinds of things that I needed and what were just distractions. And so, this is an aside, but I mean, it's just to help you guys. But, when you get into the shiny objects and, oh, this sounds good, and oh, this sounds good, and oh, this sounds good. but what are you going to use? I bought things where by the time I was ready to use it, it was obsolete or they had discontinued it. I've also bought things that I know are great because it's got a lifetime guarantee and they give me, upgrades whenever they come out. So I don't have to worry about it. So if it's something like that and it's a really great deal, then I might buy it right now. But normally I'm buying things that I'm using. So, you know, and that goes back to urgency. It's like you're looking for people who want what you have to offer now. Okay, not next year, not next decade, now. So that's the thing. Or you make them such a great deal that they're willing to buy it now because they're going to use it later, but you're giving them the guarantee that you are going to keep it updated for them. Like that's really important. And again, I'm getting off on some side things, but these are all really important points. So, yeah. Okay. So, sometimes it's really obvious that people have the money to spend on you and you know where to go. Like, for instance, let's say you were a contractor and you put in pools. Well, you go to a part of town where people have a lot of money and they can afford to have pools, right? Or high-end cars. On the internet, it's not that different. There are, for instance, in Clubhouse, there are rooms, that are dedicated to $1 million businesses and more, for instance. There are rooms and Facebook and LinkedIn too, scale to 7 figures or scale to 8 figures. Now, maybe they're not making that now, but at least they have that mindset. And so, that's a lot better than going into a room that's saying, let's clip coupons, or, some of the people who say, save your $5, whatever it is on your Starbucks to get rich. You have to do a lot more than just save money. You want to make more money, so that you can enjoy your life and you don't just have to scrimp and save until you're 65 or 80 or whatever. And some people don't even make it. They scrimp and save their whole lives, and then they finally have the money and they're too sick to do anything. So again, it's getting in the head of your potential ideal clients. Who are they? What would they be thinking? And where are they hanging out? And when you know where they're hanging out and you hang out with them and you get to know them and you get in front of them and you give value to them and you position your book to speak to them, that's when your book is going to succeed in helping you grow your business. So again, we want to have an affinity. We want to, ditto, Sue says ditto. We want to have an affinity. We want to know where they're hanging out. We want to know that they have money. We want to know that they are urgently looking to solve their problem, even though we haven't talked yet about what their problem is, but we want to know that they're searching. And those really are the main things that we're looking for when we're looking for our ideal audience. And then remember, now you want to write your book to them. Remember, I gave the example of the cardiologist. I just love that one because it's so clear. So you want to so that's why you want to pick one audience. Okay, the book has to have, you have one clear idea to one audience, and then you write your book to them, and you're solving one problem, which we'll get into tomorrow. Okay. Can you start out marketing to one group and change later? Yeah, absolutely. I have done that. When I started, I really was working with mostly, I don't know if it was mostly, but it seemed like I was working with a lot of spiritual people, and I love spiritual people, but a lot of them have this idea that it's a sin to make money. Now I'm really looking for mission-driven people, people who are driven to get their message out because they're going to do what it takes to write the book and get it out and get the results with it. So you can absolutely change who you are marketing to. And yeah, and if you're starting out, you may have to, you don't have to start with an audience that doesn't have money, because if you're marketing right, you can still get some people who have money, but you sometimes have to dial it in more later, because in the beginning, you may not know who they are. Or you may decide that, no, I don't like working with this group as much as I thought I did, and now I want to move over to this group. And so you can absolutely do that. A really good example of that is one of my mentors, Alex Branning. I got into his coaching program at one point because he was in ClickFunnels, and I wanted to learn how to do funnels. And he was in, well, not just that he was into it, but he had a coaching program where he would help you. And so even though I was taking the One Funnel Away challenge with Russell doesn't give you any coaching unless you want to pay 100,000 or more a day. So I was in Alex's program, and he was kind of like more just general, helping people with ClickFunnels. All of a sudden he realized he was having really great success with insurance agents. And so what he did was he niched down and he started just dealing with insurance agents. Well, at that point, obviously, I got off his list because it's not speaking to me anymore. But that's the point. Yeah. Okay, so someone says, I'm right, it's difficult mindset change about making money, spiritual work. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, any other questions about that? Anyway, if you want to put something in there, that's fine. I wanted to tell you, let's see what okay, so the next thing is, what are your biggest takeaways from today? Biggest takeaways, tell me. Tell me. I love this part because I love hearing like what really resonated with you or what really opened your mind to something new. Assignment for day 2 is make a list of who you have an affinity for. Okay, wait a minute. Let me go back to this. Takeaway, the experience creates the value. Limo and champagne. Nice. Okay. Marketing is selling to people who can buy what you sell. Absolutely. These are great. Thank you, guys. One message, one group. Work with people you have an affinity for. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, this is so cool. Okay. So the assignment. Make a list of who you have an affinity for. Who has the money to pay you? Who do you want to work with? What type of people do you want to work with? Do you want to work with doctors, lawyers, mission-driven entrepreneurs, authors, gymnasts? Sue is a gym psychologist. Okay, one idea, one audience, one idea, one problem. So many great takeaways. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, and then make the list of who you have an affinity for, who has the money to pay you, who do you want to work with, and also start thinking about, where are you going to find them? Where are your people? And then, let me just say a word about that too. Like there's so many social media platforms, but who do you resonate with? Like I know I quote should be in LinkedIn, but like I love Facebook. I've made so many friends on Facebook. My friends become my colleagues become my clients become my friends, whatever. And I just don't feel that in LinkedIn. So that's the other thing. It's like, you have to kind of weigh what resonates with you and then find where the people are with the money within that. Like, don't go, I can't go there because there's no money there. Believe me, there's money. There's money everywhere. So don't worry about that. Okay. Okay, I noticed that busy professional women managing a 9-to-5 have reached out to me. Okay. So then you have to say, how does that feel? Is that something that feels good to me, that I want to go there? Affinity and ability to pay. Who you like and where, yeah, absolutely. Okay. Catherine, my favorite people are authors. Good. Great. Okay. So, so that is it for this training. And day 3 tomorrow, we'll be talking about the problem that you solve for your market. Okay. So we're going to look at the problems that you solve and then which one is the best one for you to solve. So that's it. So I'll see you tomorrow.